Trapmore gang, the news has just come out. Okay, it's not quite the news that a lot of people were waiting for, but it's very close. The news has just come out that David is apparently likely to be indicted in the Celeste Rivas murder. Okay, this has just hit TMZ. It's going around absolutely everywhere. This was just a few hours ago. Okay, I rushed home so that I could react to this and give you my thoughts on the situation. But they're saying that the Christmas is over with, the holidays are over with, and now it's time for the grand jury to get busy. This says singer David will likely face murder charges for the death of Celeste Rivas, and that's because the grand jury that's hearing the case will be asked to hand down an indictment, sources are telling TMZ. There was a report last month that the grand jury was an investigative grand jury, a grand jury that helps authorities gather evidence, but one that does not indict. An investigative grand jury can be useful to subpoena and then force uncooperative witnesses to testify. But our sources say, however, the grand jury that has been hearing witnesses in the Celeste Rivas murder is actually one that will vote on indictments, and multiple sources tell TMZ that the authorities, including prosecutor Beth Silverman, believe that David was involved in the death of Rivas. TMZ broke the story earlier this month that David's day-to-day manager, Robert Morgenroth, testified for days. A TMZ reporter heard Morgenroth tell his lawyer in the courtroom hallway that Silverman was very pushy as to why he didn't call the police. He said he responded by saying it wasn't his responsibility and his job was to make sure that David's tour kept going. Grand juries generally do what prosecutors want, in no small part because the target, in this case David, has no right to present a defense. There was also talk in the courtroom hallway. The grand jury hear witnesses in February, so don't expect a quick indictment. He might be out here for a few months before these charges actually get delivered. Now, there's been a lot of hate, there's been a lot of negativity surrounding TMZ and the way that they've been pushing stories. They seem to put things out there and then wheel them back in and then confuse people. And a lot of people think that TMZ are running defense for David because the head honcho at TMZ, Harvey, apparently has some kind of friendship with David's lawyer, Blair Burke. But it sounds like things are moving forward, and I don't think there is going to be any way to escape justice in this situation, unfortunately. I think it might take some time, but I don't think there's any escape. Now, let's have a look at some of the responses, some of the reactions over on the various subreddits, because this has been going super viral today. All right, so this is the Celeste subreddit. They're saying David likely to be indicted by the grand jury in the Celeste Rivas murder case. People saying, it boggles my mind that he hasn't even been arrested yet. He had a 14-year-old's dead body in his car and was clearly in a relationship with her. A regular person would have been arrested and been prosecuted for homicide. There is a dead child and this MFer is running around free. I agree with that comment. I'm not going to lie. I agree with that comment. How can you be found in this situation? Okay, it says one of the best ways to get out of a legitimate charge in this country is on procedural technicalities, and it's a good thing that they're not rushing, but also, like, it's been months. It has actually been months. They found the body in September. This is, I'm not going to lie, like, it's just crazy. Okay, they're calling out Robert. They're posting Robert's picture. They're saying his whole team needs to be charged. I'm not going to disagree with that, to be honest with you. I'm not going to disagree with that. They're saying bye-bye, David. They're saying likely. We need some concretes. It's very ambiguous wording, but it does give a rough idea when to expect big moves. But TMZ has been known to cap. I'm not going to lie. TMZ has been known to cap. Okay, people are saying this is a good source for the grand jury process in California. I encourage anyone unfamiliar with it to read the article. Should we check it out? Should we read the article and find out how this grand jury process works? Okay, I think maybe we should. All right, people saying, I'm telling you, I swear if TMZ is making this one up, I will scream into every void imaginable. I hope before February we will see more, but at this point, I'll take it as long as Celeste can finally have justice in this case. Thanks for the share and for keeping up with all this. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't be surprised because I feel like prosecutors love putting like bodies and cases on people on like really significant dates. And I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't be surprised if... This is my prediction. I think he's going to get arrested for murder on Valentine's Day. That's just my opinion. Valentine's Day 2026, I reckon he gets arrested for murder. Let's have a little look then at how a grand jury works. We got time for all this? We got time for all this? I think we got time for all this. Let's break it down really, really quickly. Okay, in California, a grand jury is a legal process that commonly is used in federal and serious state felony cases, where a jury of citizens from the community convenes to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to charge or indict an individual for a criminal offense. So they're convening to basically look at the evidence and say, is there enough here to indict David? Now, everyone's saying, how has he not been arrested? How has he not been arrested? Well, this is why. Perhaps it is because there is so much evidence. They just need their time to get through it. Saying grand juries are different from a jury, technically known as the petit jury, at a criminal jury trial, whereas the petit jury, that's petite, like French, small, whether you are guilty or innocent. The grand jury's job is to determine whether there's probable cause to believe that you may have even committed a crime. Okay, so we kind of get a gist of what a grand jury is. It's made up of a certain number of citizens from the county, and they have to determine whether or not charges should be brought against you in certain criminal cases and inquire into matters of civil concern in the county. That's not important for this, but basically, grand juries are an arm of the court. Okay, and they take the criminal function of grand juries, not their civil function. I think that's what's more relevant here. Okay, it says California prosecutors must bring felony charges in one of two ways. They can hold a preliminary hearing before a judge or magistrate at which you are present and represented by a criminal defense lawyer. The judge determines after the hearing there is enough evidence to try you for the crime and you'll be charged for a document called an information, or they might hold a grand jury proceeding at which you are not present. So David is not present. He is not privy to what is going on in this grand jury. He is simply at home quaking in his boots, wondering what the hell is going on. If the jury decides that there is probable cause to try you for the crime, then you will be charged for a document called an indictment. Unlike a preliminary hearing, grand juries are held before you appear for an arraignment. And this says indictments. In California, the vast majority of felony charges are brought through the preliminary hearing or information process, not through grand juries or criminal indictments. But, and this is where it's relevant for this story, it says district attorneys are more likely to use the grand jury indictment process if any of the following are true. There is a high public interest in the case, correct. A preliminary hearing would take more time than a grand jury hearing. Now that one I'm not sure about. The prosecution plans to call witnesses who are children, that could be true, who for other reasons would not do well under the cross-examination that would occur at a preliminary hearing. Or 4, the case against you seems weak and the prosecutor wants the chance to test it out before jurors. I'm not going to lie, that could be true. That could be true. They could be saying, look, this David case is weak. It's so much circumstantial evidence. We haven't actually got anything really concrete. We can't arrest him straight away. Let's see what the grand jury thinks about it. Or it says the case involves any wrongdoing by a public office holder and or the witnesses are incarcerated in a state prison. Unfortunately not on number 6. Unfortunately not currently. So basically, we don't know whether this is going to be a federal case yet, all right? But basically, if he transported her across state lines, could be a federal case. Some of this 764 stuff, like if him using Discord to entice her into a relationship from Texas, if she was in California, could be looking at federal charges, okay? Now, grand juries are supposed to make an objective determination of whether there's enough evidence to try you for a crime. They're supposed to be not just a sword to help the government prosecute criminals, but also a shield protecting you from unjustified criminal charges. So David's getting the shield right now, I'm not going to lie. It says, in reality, it does not always work this way. The jury only hears one side of the story, the prosecutor's side, and under these circumstances, there's a real danger that will function only as a sword, not as a shield, and will vote to bring criminal charges that never should have been brought. This makes me want to play Pokemon Sword and Shield, I'm not going to lie. Unlike juries in criminal or civil trials, which only serve for that one trial, grand juries are often formed to sit for a period of time rather than a particular matter. During this period of time, they may hear a number of indictment cases, okay? Now, I don't really care how people are selected for a grand jury. The evidence rules does sound interesting, though. So it says here, in a typical proceeding, the district attorney will present evidence to the jurors to show that you are guilty of a crime. The evidence may include sworn testimony by witnesses, writings, material objects, or other tangible things, and deposition transcripts. The California evidence rules that apply to California criminal trials also apply to grand juries with one major exception. Specifically, the hearsay rule doesn't imply an indictment proceedings to the sworn testimony of a law enforcement officer about a statement someone else made out of court, as long as the enforcement officer has 5 years on the job or has a training course about reporting of cases. So jurors are not required to hear any evidence in your favor, though if they have a reason to believe that there is evidence available that tends to prove you are not guilty, it can order that that evidence be produced. It says the defendants have very limited rights. Okay, they do have some rights, but they're not really too much, okay? Basically, prosecutors must disclose any evidence they're aware of that tends to prove you are innocent, but if the prosecutor doesn't fulfill this obligation at your proceeding, you may be able to get the charges dismissed through a 995 motion. Okay, so basically, it's serious stuff. I mean, they've convened this grand jury, okay, and they're saying the way that the voting works sounds interesting. Okay, people are pointing out that in the selection process, the California grand juries must have at least the following number of members: 23 in counties that have a population of larger than 4 million. Which is Los Angeles County, which would be actually where this is going on. It says they're not selected at random from the list of eligible people to serve on a regular jury. Grand jurors should represent a cross-section of the population eligible to serve on a jury. And they're saying at least 14 grand jurors in counties with populations. So there should be at least 14 jurors voting on this. The vote of the jurors doesn't need to be unanimous for an indictment to be issued. After weighing all the evidence, the jurors believe the evidence would warrant your criminal conviction by a jury, then it may issue the indictment. So basically, they're deciding, look, if we think based on everything we've seen, this guy's going to be cooked and he's going to be going down, we will be pulling the charges. Okay, it says TMZ, the word likely is all I need to see. They just want readers. If it happens, it happens, but I'm not relying on TMZ for facts. Till it happens, I'm not going to celebrate, but this is sounding like we will be getting justice for Celeste. Okay, it is crazy. Now, there's basically been reaction to this in all different subreddits, and what's interesting is people are picking out specific things in the TMZ article. They're saying authorities, including prosecutor Beth Silverman, do believe that David was involved in the death of Rivas. Okay, people say, yeah, no shit. All right, the prosecutor, that's her job as a prosecutor, right? But it is interesting that we're hearing that, whether or not we believe TMZ's reporting, whether or not we believe, I think Valentine's Day 2026, that should be my prediction. I reckon that he's going to get arrested, in my opinion. All right. People saying progress is very slow, but it is progress. It is progress indeed. Justice isn't swift, unfortunately. People saying hallelujah. Let's hope this happens sooner than February, right? It's surprising it's taken that long, but it is so much evidence to get through. We're still here months on. I'm still making videos about new stuff that we're finding. Okay. The withered scrapbook, like it's crazy. The amount of stuff we're finding is crazy. It says if TMZ is making this one up, we already looked at this, my bad. People are posting on TikTok. They're saying David is going to jail for murder charges. Now, that's not true, okay? They're saying, no, he's not. The title is misleading. Not really at fault to anyone but TMZ. They used a really misleading title, but he is most likely going to be implicated, and they will recommend murder charges. But we haven't even left the investigative grand jury as far as the public eye knows. We are aware that Beth Silverman suspects him and wants charges brought against David for a while now, so the article doesn't give any new information. And at the bottom, it says we might not see anything until February, okay? This is another post about it that's been going around on the Dave Idiots thread, which is a bit more free-speeched. Okay, they're saying tomorrow will be exactly 1 year since David took the chilling photos of Celeste and himself downtown LA near 3rd and Figueroa at midnight. They're saying next year his photo will be the downtown prison yard near Warden's office. Okay, saying imagine what the homie's going to do to a 4'0" PDF twink pop star all day and all night like Kid Cudi and them. I feel bad for him, but you know, he will be a romantic inmate, okay? It will be a romantic stretch in the pen if it happens, okay? They're saying, I don't think he'll last long in a prison setting. All of that, all between that and the fact that they don't love people who harm women or children in prisons, these men will be much harder to push around than a 14-year-old child. David's going to have a very, very tough time in the pen, I'm not going to lie. This says it may have happened there. He was talking and showing his knife while he was streaming, getting all excited, showing his knife to his followers on a social media platform, just like he was that excited when he was looking at 2 young girls online and was saying that he was a gooner after he had jumped up and adjusted his pants and twerked a little. Asia was sitting right next to him. He liked P more than S, and if he was a gooner, he was having S with himself and loved it. It wasn't a show. This comment is unhinged, I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to keep reading it. It's amusing me. It says, thinking he couldn't control the lust urge to K her, to be gratified. A lot of serial killers have this trait. He's one in the same mindset, sure. I think the photo of the knife may have been a trophy photo for him to live that over and over again. Okay, they're saying it must be a slow week for TMZ because they know well that this article is getting folks excited for nothing. Literally nothing is going to happen for a while. Let's wrap it up there. I think something will happen in February. I don't think anything's going to happen now, but you never know. I don't know whether these grand juries, whether they can just say, look, we've seen enough, like just get my man arrested. I don't know. I don't know if that's how it goes down. I think it would be very interesting to just get any kind of update. I would like to know more of what's going on in the grand jury room. It's been a bit dry for updates on the outside, but no doubt anybody that's got anything to do with that grand jury, and I know it's top secret, so look, I don't want no inside info, but I do have a high level of curiosity about what is probably being discussed in there. And I do think there's probably evidence that is on a whole other level to what we know. And I feel like the folks that have been in there getting pressed, like Robert Morgenroth, I reckon he's probably quaking in his boots, in my opinion. I think he's probably stressed. He's probably hearing a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, if they're saying to him, allegedly, why didn't you call the police? I think they're saying, why didn't you call the police when X, Y, and Z happened, or the X, Y, and Z thing that you witnessed? They're not saying, why didn't you call the police because of everything that's going around on social media in 2025 after the fact. So I wonder I wonder if that's got something to do with that missing poster that went around. But anyway, I'll keep you guys updated. Okay, I've got other like David-related things that I wanted to dig into today because there were a couple of new bits and bobs of info that I found separately to what we'd been talking about. But I might do some videos on some other topics. You guys let me know what you think of this. Do you feel like an indictment is coming? Do you feel like this is TMZ just begging it for clout? I do feel like there were maybe some like morsels of information in there that were somewhat fresh. The idea that this could be wrapped up in February, that's kind of new info, but also it's not confirmed info. So let me know what you guys think, man. I'll be back with another video soon. I'm back in my usual setup, as you can see. Very nice. The holidays are over with time to grind, time to get back to grind mode and get just loads of really good topics for you guys to keep following along to everything important that's going on. And I will be announcing something very big that I'm launching very soon. I'm very excited. So thank you so much for everybody that's been rocking with me, man. I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out here, gang. Peace.